peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for finding time to being with us. This is Diaspora Dispatches, where I get to bring you the latest news from the continent of Africa. My name is Miriam Ogotu. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where you are tuned in today. And so let's just start with some news from South Africa, where South Africa's opposition economic freedom fighters leader Julius Malema was temporarily barred from tweeting on his official account for violating Twitter guidelines, local media has reported. Buseseni Ndonzi, a member of the parliament and EFF party member, on Tuesday posted on his own account a screenshot of the Twitter message that notified Mr. Malema of the temporary ban. Mr. Malema was barred from tweeting, retweeting, following accounts and liking posts for about 12 hours. Malema threatened to mobilize supporters to participate in the deadly unrest that has engulfed KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng provinces. President Cyril Ramaphosa authorized the deployment of troops to the two regions to assist quell the unrest that followed the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma. And this is what got Malema into trouble. He had tweeted, "No soldiers on our streets. Otherwise, we are joining. All fighters must be ready. They won't kill us all. We need a political solution to a political problem, not soldiers," Mr. Malema had posted on Twitter in protest against the deployment of soldiers. And then we head over to Ethiopia, and Ethiopia has described as unhelpful the intervention of the United Nations in the long-running dispute over its controversial Nile River mega dam. The country's Foreign Affairs Ministry said in a tweeted statement that it was regrettable to witness that the progress of the negotiations has been dragged and politicized. The huge dam, known as the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, has been a point of contention for a decade between Addis Ababa and downstream nations of Egypt and Sudan. Ethiopia said on Tuesday that the African Union-led process was important in addressing the concerns of the three countries, and that it was committed to seeing the process to a successful conclusion. Ethiopia says the project is essential to its development and has started feeling it, but the other two countries fear it could restrict their citizens' water access. And then with the latest from AUs and the statement they made in regards to what is going on in South Africa. And the African Union Commission has condemned the violence in South Africa that has left 72 people dead. Protests against the jailing of former President Jacob Zuma morphed into looting and destruction of property in some provinces. The AU, through its chairperson, Musa Mohamed Faki, condemned in the strongest terms the surge of violence that has resulted in the deaths of civilians and appalling scenes of the looting of public and private property. That is what the statement said in part. The army has been deployed to combat the violence and thousands have been arrested. And the chairperson of African Union is now calling for an urgent restoration of order, peace and stability in the country and full respect of the rule of law. The failure to resolve the crisis would have grave impacts for the country and the region, Mr. Mohammed added. And then we head over to East African neighbors, which is Burundi and Democratic Republic of Congo, who have now announced a joint plan to combat armed groups and foster economic growth. The presidents of both nations signed a series of agreements in Kinshasa on security and also infrastructure, with plans for railway to connect the nation's major cities and boost trade. No cost and deadline were made public yesterday for the projects, but a joint commission of experts who will oversee its progress was announced. Tuesday's visit to Kinshasa was the first made by Burundi's President Evariste Ndayishimiye since he took power a year ago, following sudden death of his predecessor, Pierre Nkurunziza. Head over to Eritrea, and the head of the United Nations Refugee Agency says he has received credible and corroborated reports of reprisal attacks, abductions, arrests, and violence meted out against Eritrean refugees for their perceived affiliation with one side or the other throughout this bloody conflict. Filippo Grandi expressed his concern about widespread attacks against refugees committed by numerous armed players in the Mai Aina and Adi Harush refugee camps, primarily at night. Hundreds of Eritreans have been arrested in Shire in the last week and demanded clarification from the authorities in Mekelle, as well as immediate release of the refugees and asylum seekers. Mr. Grandi urged the federal government and the Tigray regional government to initiate formal investigations into all credible allegations. Then we go to Uganda, and Uganda will see an increase in coronavirus infections in the middle of July despite a lockdown. The National Planning Authority, NPA, has said. NPA said, according to their monitoring module, the country is then projected to witness a gradual reduction in the number of the new cases by August 2021. Uganda is experiencing a vicious second wave of infections with high community infections and a number of new variants, of which Delta is dominant. Both the Health Ministry and NPA have projected a continued rise in the new cases until mid-July, although slightly lower than those of the past weeks. Then we head over to Nigeria. And the International Criminal Court on Tuesday acknowledged a 27-page petition filed by Yoruba Nation's agitators. Those who signed the petition are the leader of Ilana Omo Odu, Emeritus Professor Banji Akintoye, Yoruba activist Asande Adeyemo, fondly called Asande Iboho, and other 49 Yoruba self-determination groups. In the petition, the Yoruba Nation agitators accused the Nigerian leaders and security chiefs of genocide and crimes against humanity against the Yoruba people. Head over to South Sudan, and South Sudan's health officials say more than 50,000 people have had their first COVID-19 jab, and that vaccines have been sent to all the country's regional states. But there is still a long way to go, given the country's total population stands at 11 million people and its chronic insecurity and infrastructural challenges. In March, South Sudan received its first consignment of 132,000 doses of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines from the COVAX facility. Due to slow rollout and possibility of the vaccines getting expired before they were used, 72,000 doses were donated to neighboring Kenya. South Sudan so far has used 90% of the remaining 60,000 doses, and that is according to its official data. And still staying with matters, South Sudan, the new governor of Lake State has promised to end cattle-related and intercommunal conflicts that have rocked the state for years. Rain Tweng, the former military intelligence director, was appointed a governor in June. The restive state has been rocked by a cycle of communal violence. Observers attribute to revenge killings and cattle rustling. There have also been armed highway robberies on the major roads linking the state to its neighbors. Tweng says the insecurity has disrupted livelihoods activities, including farming and the movement of civilians. And then we head over to Zimbabwe, and Zimbabwe is aiming to vaccinate 1 million people against COVID-19 in the next 2 weeks, President Emerson Mnangagwa said on Tuesday, as he extended tough lockdown measures by another 14 days. Faced with rising infections and deaths, Mnangagwa on June 29th introduced a tough lockdown measures that included a dusk to dawn curfew and curbs of intercity travel. Mnangagwa said infections were rising at an alarming rate as the more transmissible Delta variant spreads locally. He said the government would inoculate 1 million people during the extended lockdown period. The Southern African nation has to date recorded 70,426. Right now it's more than that infections, a quarter of them in the past 2 weeks, and 2,236 plus deaths. Official data showed more than 900,000 Zimbabweans have received a first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Then we go to Mozambique. The European Union will set up a military training mission in Mozambique to help the government tackle a growing Islamist insurgency and to protect civilians, the bloc said on Monday. Mozambique, which has called on the EU for help, has been grappling with a rebellion in its northmost province of Cabo Delgado since 2017. Violence has grown significantly in the past year. EU foreign ministers took the formal decision at a meeting in Brussels on Monday, although it was not immediately clear which countries will provide the necessary troops. And then we end by going back to Ethiopia, and Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has accused the Tigray People's Liberation Front TPLF of starting to fight along aid corridors in the war-torn northern Tigray region. The TPLF, the former ruling party of Tigray, which was ousted in November by the army, has since joined forces with other groups to form the rebel Tigray Defense Force (TDF). The rebels captured the regional capital Mekelle last month, and the government withdrew its troops and unilaterally declared a humanitarian ceasefire to allow farming activities to take place and for aid to be delivered. But the TPLF demanded a negotiated truce with conditions including the complete withdrawal of Eritrean troops and the regional Amara forces. In his statement, Mr. Abiy Ahmed also accused the international community of silence about what he said was the TPLF's recruitment of child soldiers, his first comments on the issue since Tigrayan forces launched their new offensive. They follow remarks by military spokesperson Colonel Getnet Adane, who said that the army was ready to take measures if it received orders. And it's interesting that Abiy Ahmed now is complaining of what Tigray is saying, not that of what Tigray TPLF is doing, and not that it's any good. Whatever is happening, they're blocking humanitarian aid, and all that is not very good because the people there needs it so much. But it's very hypocritical because for a long time he did the same thing. You know, the Ethiopian army, Eritrean army, even until today, the UN has been asking for them to be removed, and they refuse to be removed. It cannot be verified, that Eritrean forces are out of those places they were stationed in Tigray. So it's interesting that Abiy Ahmed would be the person to come now and complain about the presence, about TPLF, recruiting child soldiers. Of course, these are very serious allegations, and I think it is something that should be looked into. But Abiy Ahmed should not be the one to speak on this matter and to complain what TPLF is doing, when the rest of the world was pleading with him to do the same, but he refused until Ethiopian soldiers and Eritrean soldiers were defeated and they were driven out of Mekelle, which is the capital of the Tigray region. So that is what I had for you this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.
Peace must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.